If you need Wi-Fi, just forget it. That phrase, as funny as it sounds, perfectly sums up what many people still don't get about Alaska. It's not some pretty Netflix scenery. It's a daily test of endurance. And the curious thing, lots of folks fool themselves thinking they could handle it easily. Do you think you're ready to face absolute loneliness, minus 40 degrees Celsius cold, and even fight a moose in your backyard over the trash? Think you could live 2 months in total darkness without losing your mind? This video isn't just a list. It's a mirror. Here you'll discover interesting facts, real mysteries, and hard truths about one of the most extreme places on the planet. And maybe by the end, you'll realize Alaska just isn't for you. But can you watch until the end? Or will you shut off at the first sign of discomfort? Some people just can't live without a coffee shop on the corner, a 24-hour grocery store, or at the very least, a stable Wi-Fi signal. And if that sounds like you, then Alaska might be your worst nightmare. The vastness of this place is no joke. Endless forests, snow-covered mountain ranges, and entire regions where the silence is so deep, it's almost deafening. You can drive for hours without passing another soul. And that's not an exaggeration. Even in the biggest cities like Anchorage or Fairbanks, the feeling of isolation is constant. You might be surrounded by buildings, but emotionally, it feels like you're on an island. It's as if the world keeps spinning out there, and you've hit the pause button. And don't think this isolation is just geographical. Creeps into your daily life, reshaping how you perceive time, relationships, and even your own presence. Imagine waking up and not seeing anyone on the street, then having lunch alone, working alone, and ending your day still alone. In Alaska, that's routine. Even the locals, already used to the slow rhythm of life here, admit that this state demands a kind of mental strength few people have. Solitude starts as a whisper, but quickly becomes a constant voice in your head. Curious how such a massive place can make someone feel so small. It's a mystery how some people thrive in this environment while others fall apart in just a few weeks. Now, think about this. How would you feel living somewhere where your closest neighbor is miles away? Where the only sound you hear is the wind slicing through the trees or the call of a raven flying over your cabin? Sounds poetic, right? But it's far from romantic when reality hits. Have you ever needed urgent medical help, and the nearest hospital is a 2-hour snowmobile ride away? Here's an interesting fact. In Alaska, even emergencies require planning. If you rely on city comforts, casual encounters, or an active social life to stay grounded, then you might just be facing the first big sign that this wild land isn't meant for you. Imagine waking up in the morning, opening the window, and everything is dark. You wait a little. Maybe it's too early. But you make your coffee, take a shower, get dressed, and still nothing. The night is still there, as if time has frozen. In cities like Utqiagvik, Alaska, the sun simply disappears for 2 whole months. It's not a metaphor, nor some rare astronomical oddity. It's the daily reality for thousands of people. And believe me, this detail changes everything. The absence of light messes with our brain, hormones, and mood. What used to be routine becomes a struggle. What was simple, like getting out of bed, starts to feel like a mental marathon. That's because sunlight regulates our biological clock. And without it, the body loses track of time. The curious thing is that, even knowing this, many people underestimate the impact. They only realize the weight when they start dragging themselves through the day, unwilling to do anything, with heavier and heavier thoughts. It's an interesting fact that in places like these, depression rates rise significantly during the polar winter. And it's not just about feeling sad. It's a growing exhaustion, a silent emptiness that seeps into daily life. Many residents have to use light therapy lamps inside their homes to simulate the presence of the sun and prevent their minds from collapsing. So, the lingering question is, would you be able to endure whole weeks living in darkness, while everything outside remains frozen? And as if that weren't enough, this phenomenon happens right in the coldest time of the year. So, while the world sleeps, you're trapped inside your home, windows covered in ice, with no desire to go out. It's like living in an endless cycle of night, silence, and loneliness. Aside from the curiosities, Alaska shows us that surviving the cold is only half the challenge. The other half is surviving your own mind. Because when everything around freezes, the only warmth left is what you manage to keep inside. And if that runs out, that's when the real test begins. Speaking of extreme cold, here's an interesting fact that surprises a lot of people. Alaska may offer high wages, but that doesn't mean comfort, let alone luxury. The harsh truth is that most of the well-paid jobs in the state demand physical and mental effort that borders on inhuman. Fishermen face open seas with sub-zero temperatures, violent waves, and shifts that can last up to 20 hours. Miners descend underground for days at a time, dealing with constant risks of accidents, toxic gases, and emotional breakdowns. Heavy truck drivers navigate ice-covered roads, complete isolation, and the constant threat of freezing to death if something goes wrong along the way. No exaggeration, this is everyday life. If you think your current job is hard, try hauling tons of crabs on a slippery deck in the middle of the ocean with a wind chill of -30 degrees Celsius. It's the kind of curiosity you only truly understand when you live. Scratch that, survive it. But you know what's even scarier? Even after all that backbreaking work, or bone-chilling to be more accurate, the money barely covers the basics. The cost of living in Alaska is sky-high. We're talking $10 for a gallon of milk, rents well above the national average, and gas prices that could make anyone cry at the pump. And that's without counting supply issues. When the weather turns bad, planes don't land, ships don't dock, and products simply don't arrive. Some places go weeks without fresh produce. That's right, weeks. And if you've ever been annoyed waiting an extra day for an online order, well, in Alaska, that's just daily life. This is the kind of curious detail that doesn't get much airtime in those beautiful documentaries filled with northern lights. Now, put it all together. Exhausting work, a paycheck that vanishes on basic goods, and a hostile climate that makes even the simplest tasks a struggle. Sounds dramatic. It's not. It's an honest look at what many endure in America's frozen north. And here's the kicker. There's not much room for creative careers, remote work in cozy cafes, or career pivots at 30. What's in demand is people willing to haul, dig, fish, drive, or defend, period. If you're not up for that, Alaska will chew you up and spit you out. It's as if the state itself tests your endurance every single day. One more curious fact. Plenty of young folks move up there chasing high wages and wild adventures, but they return months later, broke, injured, and with a reality check they'll never forget. And the most intriguing part, some say that's still not the worst of it. Because in Alaska, there are forces more brutal than money or work. It may sound contradictory, but Alaska, this snow-covered land surrounded by breathtaking landscapes, is also one of the U.S. states with the highest rates of violent crime. That's an interesting fact many people completely overlook. Part of the reason is that many regions are so remote, they don't even have regular law enforcement. It's not unusual for small towns to wait hours, or even days, for an officer to arrive, assuming one is available at all. And when the security system fails, instinct takes over. Domestic disputes, thefts, assaults, and even disappearances happen more often than you'd expect. Alaska isn't just cold in terms of weather. Sometimes it's emotionally cold too. Speaking of cold, here's another curious fact. Minus 40 degrees Celsius isn't a Hollywood exaggeration. It's real. And at those temperatures, basic tasks turn into survival challenges. Your phone stops working. Your car won't start. Bare skin touching metal freezes instantly. Stepping outside underdressed can lead to hypothermia in just minutes. Think you've felt cold before? Probably never had to melt ice just to get drinking water. It's one of those fascinating facts that quickly becomes a nightmare when you experience it. In some communities, snowstorms are so severe they literally bury entire homes. And yet life goes on. Kids still go to school. Adults still go to work. As if nature wasn't constantly trying to push everyone out. Now picture this. You're stuck inside your house during a blizzard, no power, no heat, and the nearest town is miles away. And to top it off, you hear someone in the community disappeared overnight. The mix of fear and helplessness is hard to describe. In Alaska, the extreme weather isn't just a backdrop. It's the main character. It sets the rules, imposes limits, and constantly tests your emotional endurance. And maybe the most curious thing of all is realizing that, even in the face of all this, some people see beauty in the chaos. Some even say the real mystery of Alaska isn't in its forests or legends, but in the human will to keep living there, no matter what. But if you already shiver just thinking about forgetting your coat on a chilly day in Brazil, wait until you meet the giant mosquitoes that arrive when spring finally starts to melt the ice. It's easy to romanticize the wild when you're watching the northern lights on Instagram or a moose crossing a river in a documentary. But living inside that reality, that's a whole different story. In Alaska, the wilderness isn't a postcard. It's a raw, unpredictable, and often dangerous force. Giant moose aren't just majestic. They're territorial and aggressive, fully capable of smashing a car with a single kick. Bears. They're not rare, they're neighbors. They show up at campsites, rummage through trash, even wander into backyards. And they're not there for a selfie. They're hungry, fighting with seasoned fishermen for salmon. If a flying cockroach already gives you a scare, you might want to rethink venturing into the tundra. And if you think that's the worst of it, just wait until summer. When the snow melts, Alaska turns into a buzzing nightmare. Over 17 trillion mosquitoes swarm the forests, lakes, and even small towns. Yes, trillions. They bite through clothes, chase you in clouds, and turn a simple walk outside into a mental endurance test. Longtime locals wear head nets, industrial-grade repellents, and often lock themselves indoors during peak hours. And don't forget the black flies, even more aggressive. Here's an interesting fact. Some mosquito species in Alaska can suck so much blood they literally fall to the ground, too heavy to keep flying. As if that weren't enough, add expensive food, scarce housing, and unreliable power in remote areas. Alaska is a place where nature makes the rules, and if you can't adapt, you're out. The real mystery, perhaps, lies in why some people fall in love with such a hostile way of life. But maybe that answer isn't found in the landscapes. Maybe it's hidden in everything they force you to become. We've reached the end, but the question remains. Do you really have what it takes to survive in Alaska? Could you handle the crushing loneliness, the cold that seems to freeze you from the inside out, or the wildness that shows no mercy? These are just a few of the mysteries and challenges that make Alaska a place for the few, or for those brave enough to face the impossible. What about you? What would you do if you had to choose between this brutal life and the comfort of the city? Have you ever thought about trying? Or do you know someone who took on this challenge? Share your story in the comments. Your experience could be the next interesting fact everyone wants to hear. Oh, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the upcoming curiosities, mysteries, and historical facts that will surprise you. There's much more coming, and you won't want to be left out.